My name's Larry Hertzog. I am the creator, executive producer of Nowhere Man.
My name is Monterastelli. I am one of the writers, and I was the supervising producer of Nowhere Man.
You know, one of the things it's interesting to me how you came in as they ordered the back nine of the show, and certainly I think alongside me had the most affinity for what it was we were doing here. But whenever I listen to you talk about the show, off screen, on screen, whatever it is, it's you know, I'm definitely like foaming at the mouth, like this is my life. And you have all these wonderful like quotes and your well-read references. You know, I should take you around with me wherever I go because you make me look smart.
Well, they sent me the DVDs like 6 months ago.
Yeah, but you quote like Young and all these things. I thought when you were quoting Young, you meant Neil Young. I mean,
I was.
Oh,
Nowhere Man.
The collective unconsciousness. I mean, it has to be said for all eternity and record that you and I believe, co-wrote this script, but we were at a very dismal point in the
Very dismal
devolution of the series, and it was so little under my tutelage at this point, other than that we conceived of how we wanted the first season to end and we executed these scripts, that this is a cycle of episodes which I kind of consider the last four, or the lost four, at least from my point of view, that I can barely say I barely remember them.
So this episode I actually like, but we're way beyond the beginning and the end, because you were sort of disengaging a little bit, and I was trying to do something in this episode, but was never able to communicate to, looking back, I don't even know. I don't remember who the powers to be were, who they were, but you know, an idea, you know, it was a crazy idea. It wasn't what they wanted to hear,
right?
But an idea of like, actually, if we can pull off Gemini, I'm thinking, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
we can get the best of both worlds. They're gonna like it because it can continue to be a really cool and creepy thriller, and yet there's some bullshit thing we can tell them. And it's sort of in here, for me anyway, and yet a lot of people, like, you know, when they see this episode and when they responded to it in the internet too, saw, you know, something completely different.
I know.
And nobody, including like Stan and, you know, the suits, nobody really got a sense of what it was. You know?
Well, when Toby and I first were talking about doing the pilot, and it was probably either during the shooting, before the shooting. It wasn't after, because Toby disappeared pretty quickly afterwards. We were talking about where might the show go, what could be going on, what might not be going on, and the kind of, I mean, it was not something we were seriously playing, oh my God, he's being chased by the village people. But we kind of came up with that sort of Manchurian Candidate concept, that perhaps the reason it was so easy to remove the identity of Tom Vail was because Tom Vail itself wasn't a valid identity. So despite the pressure all season to come up with more of a kind of structured what's going on, what's not going on, where we ended up really wasn't any different from the initial conversation that Toby and I had about it. And you know, I still say that had we set out to do a show that was going to start in the pilot like a mystery, and say, someone did this to you, who is it, and then spend a series, which of course in your best hopes is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years long, to get to the mystery, you're going to have to be going so far away of avoiding getting to the end. And you know, that led to a number of conversations we all had, you, Joel, me, we all had the conversations about creating these mini arcs, where you would make some kind of progress without fundamentally impacting the overall part of the show and what we were doing. But for the internet people and the diehard fans of the show and the people that I was communicating with, there were the clue heads, the people who saw the show, and this episode begins to completely satisfy the clue heads. Of course, it begins to open questions that we couldn't possibly answer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, getting your own series on the air is a coup, whether it's on for one episode or 10 or years. And I came into the office on my show. I don't think you were here at the point, but you certainly experienced the back end of it. And I started to go for some coffee. And Stacy, my assistant, said, "That's decaf?" And I said, "Why is there decaf? I don't drink decaf." She said, "Oh, it's for like the editors. They made it." I said, "Well, when they get their series, they can make their own, you know, effing coffee or whatever." So the next day I came into the office and there were 2 coffee machines and there was a sign over one that said, "This is for non-decaffeinated. If you want decaffeinated, get your own effing series." You remember that?
Funny. Yeah,
Remember
I
that
do.
sign? It hung there for a long time. It was
did.
great. We had a good time.
Gemini's
That's funny.
information to
It was
Rob
nice to
is
have the editors just out in the garage.
Oh, absolutely.
It was an ideal setting too.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
have
so
that, the house,
so people
you
know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When they asked us to find offices to do the show, I smoked cigarettes, I had a dog, I didn't want to work in one of these offices where I was unhappy, so we rented a house, and the bedrooms became offices, and the main areas of the living room and stuff were the pit with the assistants and stuff, and the editors were in the garage. But it was always very funny because when actresses were told by their agents that they had an audition, they were always told, "Don't get freaked out because you're going to be driven, you're going to a house." You know, all you need is these attractive women like being said, "Oh, come to 1414 Mockingbird Lane," you know, and walk through the front door. So everyone, you know, then the delivery guys would walk in and see the desks and the Xerox and go, "Wow, from outside, this looked just like a house." Hey, Barney Miller.
Abe Lincoln, we were just talking about him outside. That's funny.
So yeah, the clue heads, you know, they were all, supposedly there's going to be some big payoff to Tom finding out who those hanging bodies were.
Right, right.
And that they were all these important.
Who's calling?
My name's Tom Vale. I'm a photographer. I took a photograph of 4 of Senator Wallace's colleagues I think he might be interested in.
See, Bruce was in a good place. He's looking a little haggard. His hair was longer. He's been playing the role. He's worn down a little bit.
Nice shot.
Yeah, this was a nicely shot episode. The episode itself was nicely shot.
It still amazes me how much bang for the buck Peter in concert with Jim and the directors could get us. I mean, when I think of some of the things in Through a Lens, the taxi cab scene,
Yeah.
I mean, I have no doubt I'm in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, it feels like a little feature.
Yeah.
It really does.
I mean,
not a little feature. It feels like a quality
Yeah.
feature. Yeah.
Or he doesn't.
All right, this picture, you have it with you?
Yeah, I have it printed it, yeah.
All right, you let me see it. If I think it's worth the senator's time, we'll move on to the next step.
You know, if Nowhere Man and what it was really about was about politics, I was saying this before, but it would be so easy. Just an easy explanation. You now understand it. You could get the bad guys and life would go on.
Get out of Washington.
Yeah.
It don't work like that.
Yeah. No.
Paranoia right now.
No.
This I'm not giving
Ha.
away.
It's funny too, because I get the whole thing of paranoia in this show. But I don't think of it as paranoid. I think of it as real. You know, I never thought of the show as paranoid. Then UPN came up with that.
Yeah, I use the word existential. They call it a paranoid thriller.
Yeah.
Senator Wallace in.
Who's calling?
Tom Vale.
God, sounds like harbingers to the pilot.
I need to
Larry
talk to you
Levy's
about
office.
What happened to your assistant, Doug Iverman, today?
Let's cut to the chase, Mr. Vale. Did you kill him?
Of course not. I wouldn't be calling you if I had. But I was there when he was shot.
What is this all about?
The most I can tell you is it's about a photograph. I was trying to show him a copy of it when it
You know,
happened.
you can see here, like the attempt to, like, okay, bring in 3 Days of the Condor-esque
Right.
elements. So at least, like, okay, is espionage the genre? Is that the genre here? And I remember, you know, thinking, okay, it isn't the genre, but maybe if we do a little bit of that,
It'll help.
yeah, it'll help. And you know, it's funny. It's like there's a lot of this episode that I like, but there's a lot too that I see it being like, you know, last-ditched attempt to sort of bring them to the party as opposed to us making the changes. Because I sort of knew, I think unconsciously, long before this point, that we were never going to be able to come to them like there was no answer. It was just like that. Again, you know, if you're making an existential thriller and you take the existential part out, and there isn't you take the riddle away from it.
Right.
Boom, the show's over.
Right.
We weren't a procedural show. We weren't a cop show, as Stan wanted us to be. But we weren't also a spy show. We weren't doing, you know, the spy thriller of the week either. And that's what really finally sort of threw them, I think.
We were probably doing something we shouldn't have been doing. We were very naughty.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were,
Mr. Vale.
but had fun, as most people who are being naughty, I guess, often do.
Let's do this without making
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
I guess he's going to the principal's office now.
He's clean. I'll call you if I need you.
He's just making sure. He wants to actually find out what happened, for a while anyway.
Satisfied?
Mr. Vale,
Exhibit
my close
closed.
associate was killed. I'm entitled to be a bit cautious.
You know, one thing that I always found, it's interesting how in this particular episode, we're generally just talking about general things because the show had sort of left the gate.
Yeah.
But when the people saw the pilot and then some of the successive episodes, when you think about it, some of them were very emotionally kind of shaken up.
Right.
You know, oh, I saw the pilot, I needed to like go take a Valium or have a
Right,
drink or da-da-da.
right.
And you realize how
Richards.
untelevision
Yeah.
that is, because the average person rightfully wants to come home. Man, it's been tough enough out
Right.
there all day long fighting the things Tom Vale fights, whether you know it or not, and then you come home and you're sitting in traffic and you just want to, you know, you want to turn on, like, you want to
Monday Night
football
or Desperate
You know,
Housewives.
Yeah, beer and babes
Yeah,
and stuff. And
exactly.
we're doing this show that you come home and it upsets you.
Yeah.
To vote with you.
Yeah, and actually, and the best episodes were the most upsetting.
Right. Strange they never picked it up, huh?
Yeah.
Controversial anti-terrorism bill.
Are you trying to blackmail me? Is that what this is all about?
No, I'm just trying to get to the truth. I mean, there's obviously something rotten going on around here. I mean, your assistant was shot this morning.
Quite a few of my staff are convinced that you're responsible.
Actually, Tom
Shot at long range. I was
said
standing
that
2 feet
in the
away.
truth and in the pilot. He says, when someone says wonderful pictures, he says, hey, you know, I just
I
record.
have that in a safe
You know, they're
place.
beautiful. It's, as if he's just the recorder
Right.
of things. And it's one of the things about Tom that I think he's mistaken.
Yeah.
You know, and when we did explore his flaws
What did you have in mind?
in Through a Lens a little bit, and then in the
Yeah.
Maria Bello show,
I know everything
Um,
about the committee.
the,
I know about 4 senators. I just want to be able to find out the truth.
you know, I feel bad for him because I so respect him and I think he's such a hero. But I feel he's a little naive,
Yeah.
believing there is a truth to get to,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I think too that this is the episode. It's like it's hitting you over the head that there's a truth to get to.
Right.
You know, and I remember at this point you were starting to emotionally check out because you'd been beaten down for so long by these guys, and I kind of remember wanting to rally the thing. But it's ironic that this thing we're hearing now is like the truth, the truth. To me, that's, even though it's here, and I'm throwing this shit in, some of it, for whatever part I wrote, because I don't remember
Right.
who wrote what now. But my idea of like
You
Gemini,
wrote the stuff that sounds smart, and I wrote the stuff that sounds paranoid and emotional. That's probably how we could figure it out. You always had like people quoting great things. I go, where does Art get this stuff? You know? No, I don't remember who wrote what.
I don't either. But I do remember the idea in my mind thinking of
everything
like
I know.
Gemini is like perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Gemini
Oh,
being
absolutely.
perfect, because even if Tom at some point, it's like,
skittish
you know, the great thing in what's the Hitchcock film, North by Northwest, where, you know, the other man's identity,
Right.
and there is no identity.
Right.
It was a false identity.
Right.
Cary Grant for a while assumes that identity,
Right.
you know, and I always thought there was a way for us to do that, you know, that Tom consciously decides to assume, you know, but to get to that,
Right, well,
even
that was,
like,
I think, something we talked about for if season 2 had happened.
oh yeah, yeah.
You know, that he would
but we
take on the
started
persona.
to kind of like deal with, to feel them out in this, before that, but in this episode here, and again, it was a huge miss because even that was too cerebral or too visceral. Either way, it wasn't like packaged enough. It wasn't pre-sold. It wasn't like, that's still not telling us what the show is.
Right,
You know, you can say
right.
for a whole season then, he plays the game like Cary Grant. Yeah, maybe for a whole season he does that, you know? We don't know,
Right.
or at least for an arc, you know?
Right.
That would have been cool, and that's where we were, and that's when, at the same time, as you were more aware than I was, they'd already made their decision.
Right. God, look at those discs. Try to fit one of those into your cell phone. Same exact look and the way he holds the gun as he did in the pilot at the end when he had the Padre at gunpoint.
This must be pretty important stuff. To send the number 2 man at the FBI to destroy it, huh?
Well, guy must have, after this, he got a job at Arthur Anderson.
You're not going to be able to change anything.
You call the deaths of 5 senators a little operation.
5 dead senators? That sounds like the ravings of a crazy man, Bale.
Very Bellamy-esque in its own way.
Yeah. See, this is very un-Tom Vale.
Right.
Very,
You protect
very,
false
very
memory long
un-Tom Vale.
it
Like,
becomes real.
But why hidden agenda?
Ow.
that had to have hurt.
That really had to have hurt. Do we have to pay him extra for that?
Yeah, we did.
Ooh, I'll
It was a
bet.
real bullet.
Hidden agenda
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it must have been horrible.
was always as much about you as it was about concealing the deaths of 4 senators. It was about testing the limits of your belief.
Okay, everybody happy? He said it, and the show's over. You'll never see it again.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, we're just happier. We know. We don't care if we ever get to see it
Come
again.
on, Bale. You're 2 moves from checkmate.
Now, I didn't necessarily believe I was right about how I was doing the show. It was just the way the show was designed, and that's what we were doing. But now that I watch this, I was right about what I was doing.
believe
I mean,
what
and
you
I
said
didn't
at
even
the
think that
beginning
then.
was, you know, in terms of too of the idiosyncratic nature of it. That's what made this show so different and so unique.
Yeah.
And you just can't. It was one of those shows. By taking that out, what do you have? You
Yeah, this
know?
is just like a low budge man on fire thing.
Right, right. Right. I'm surprised. I'd forgotten how violent this particular, you know, scene was from Tom's point of view, because
Right.
he was never a guy who was.
Right. I mean, he went after Bellamy with the, you know, fake named chemical.
Right.
But other than that, go ahead, put it in, Tom. Now you get to see it. The world gets to see it. Oh no, save one of those M&Ms for me. He's gone. And that's a bummer.
You can't protect yourself anymore.
You're Gemini Vale?
The money's under the big W. Sorry, I can't. There's just part of me that, here it comes. Serious explained, game over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. This is your house in Evanston, Illinois. This is your beautiful wife, Allison. Your best friend is Larry Levy.
That was the first time I've ever used, as a writer, my own first name for a character.
Oh, really?
I live
Yeah.
in Evanston, Illinois.
It's a little weird for me when I'm writing.
Yeah.
Name
I've
is-
never used mine.
My wife's
Yeah.
name is Allison.
But you notice I killed the guy,
Yeah.
so
My
that's
best
for the
friend.
Larry.
therapist. That's for the
Larry Levy.
therapist to figure out. Well, I didn't. Levy is.
And what is your name?
My name is Thomas Vale.
My name is Thomas Vale.
See, folks, there's those of us who just think there's a lot more fun when you don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Well, or again, the other side of this is, why did this have to be the end? Is this the end of anything?
Well, it was never intended.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
We knew we
Exactly.
could go on from there.
Yeah.